Hey, happy Friday, everybody. Gail, man, where's Damon at today? What is going on here? Are you hiding him? Where'd he go?
I pushed him out of the way.
I don't blame you. It's about time somebody moved him out of the way. So, hey, Damon, we miss you, dude. Happy Friday. We're thinking of you as you're doing your little business today. So, Gail now is in the house, the curiosity expert, the guru. Gail, how are you?
I am great. I was just on a show with Inger, so I did talk a bit about this show. And definitely this show today is all about how to use curiosity when we're talking about something like supply chain and logistics. So I'm excited because I think we have a lot to learn from Sarah. So and a fellow Canadian.
A fellow Canadian, the Great White North. So, hey, let's just dive right in. And so, big intro. Guys, you're out there. Drop us a note. Let us know that you're there. We strongly encourage you. We invite you, welcome you to connect with our wonderful, our amazing, our incredible guests today. So, Sarah Barnes-Humphrey, happy Friday. Thank you for joining us today. How are you?
Happy Friday. Thanks so much for having me. I mean, it's cool, right? I'm glad to be here with you. It's like Friday around lunchtime. People are eating their lunch, We're going to have some fun today. Thanks for having me.
We're going to have some fun. So, boy, you have a deep resume. And so I won't read the entire thing, but my goodness, I think you do. Man, you are so humble. I can't take your humility. Let's go here. So let's talk supply chain. How on earth did you come up with but you know what? Before we go there, Gail, are you sitting down? Are you sitting down for this? Let me rattle off a few things about our friend Sarah. So the founder of Let's Talk Supply Chain. You're an award-winning podcaster. You're the host and founder of the Blended podcast. You have a LinkedIn learning course called Fundamentals of Sustainable Supply Chains. You're the founder of ShipZ. Am I saying that?
Well, that, we might need to drop that.
But okay. Well, all right. We'll drop. All right. So, but you are doing also, you've got the Blended Pledge. We've got all sorts of things that we're going to talk about today. You've built a dynamic, incredible, wonderful community. As we dig into these things, here's my first question for you today, Sarah. Sarah, are you sitting down? Are you ready? It looks like
I am. And you know what? After you said all of that, I was like, wow, I've been busy.
You have been busy, my friend. So it's very impressive, very inspiring what you've accomplished at such a young age. Let's go here, my friend. Sarah.
Well, thank you.
When you were a little girl growing up,
yeah.
When you were a little girl growing up, who was your hero? Who was your hero as a little girl growing up that developed this amazing, incredible rock star that you are?
I have no idea. I have never really thought about that. I don't even remember what happened, a month ago. Like March this year seems like it was 5 years ago. So, and that was a very long time ago when I was a little girl. Maybe like Wonder Woman, because like I grew up in the 80s.
Nice. Right? Wonder Woman, great answer. You know what? I had a guess one time, and the answer was that lovely lady that's over your shoulder, Audrey Hepburn.
Oh, Audrey Hepburn.
So we hear all sorts of different answers. So, all right, Wonder Woman is a great answer. Gail, we've got some wonderful guests here. Hey, we've got Clive coming in from the UK. We've got some folks across the pond. We've got Paul from Dublin. Irena's here today from DC. We've got somebody visiting from Houston, and we've got Peter all the way from Nigeria. So again, guys, drop a note in the chat. Let us know that you're here. Give a big hello to Sarah. Connect with my friend Gail. Connect with Sarah on LinkedIn. Sarah, let's go here. Supply chain. I know you have a long career in logistics. As you were a little girl, and Wonder Woman was your superhero who you looked up to, and you are certainly Wonder Woman today, doing amazing things. What attracted you to logistics? What brought your passion, your interest, your expertise into the world of supply chain? Would you please share that with folks?
So I kind of say that supply chain is in my blood because I remember being at the dinner table because my parents owned a logistics company and they would talk about it. And so I learned about it at a very young age. And I think even at the age of 16, I was like, I want to take over that company one day. Like that was my aspirations at 16. And to be honest with you, at the end of high school, I was like, I don't really know what I want to do. My grandfather was in the Scotland Yard. He was a detective. Oh,
nice. Awesome.
And I've always loved true crime. And I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll go and do that. And then I was like, I'm not very good with blood, and there's a whole thing that you need to go through to be a detective. I was like, that's probably not me. And then I was like, maybe private investigator. So I looked into some of those courses. But really, at the end of the day, I didn't really know what I wanted to go to school for. So I went into the family business instead and did all of my courses, diplomas by correspondence while I worked. So I had hands-on and then also had a little bit of the schooling experience.
Well, it sounds like a couple more heroes might be there. So mom and dad were just fierce entrepreneurs. You had grandpa at Scotland Yards. I absolutely love that. A couple more friends here are popping in. John is coming in from Utah. Happy Friday, John. We've got Patrick dropping a note here from abroad. So thank you guys again. Let us know that you're out there. Gail, let's go here. You are a recovering journalist, if I have that correct. I know you are burning up with questions.
I love that.
Let's get that journalism flair going. What do you got for us?
Well, I want to start with, I did a post today because I said, basically to the tune of something like, who thought supply chain was all that important? And I said, I didn't really understand it until I started working in manufacturing and then realized everything we touch, feel, eat, see, hear comes via some sort of supply chain. I used to hear it as some like, oh yeah, supply chain, and blew it off. Can you talk about that and maybe what's changed? Now I came into it I sort of came in manufacturing and a little bit before COVID, but when COVID hit, it really seemed to blow up. Can you maybe talk about how the topic of supply chain has changed in the last couple of years?
Yeah. So I think for anybody watching, if they don't really understand what supply chain is, maybe we kind of start there, right? It's the sourcing of raw materials or product. It's the buying of the product, the making or the manufacturing of the product, the movement of the raw materials and product, distribution, warehousing, and then delivery of the product, right? And I think we've gone through a lot of changes. I mean, listen, when I started in the industry in 1998, yes, everybody, I even started kind of before that because I spent summers in the office. But anyways, things have changed a lot, right? I think you're right. People didn't even really know what supply chain was until we went through the pandemic and we saw empty shelves of those toilet paper. And then, even for me, like on my live show, I had somebody show up on YouTube and they were like, listen, I have a small business and I'm trying to figure out what is happening in supply chain right now. And so I'm coming to you and I'm watching your show because I just want to learn about what I don't know and what I need to know for my business. And so people are becoming aware of it. They're also, aware that it's a competitive advantage. They're aware that it's a really important component of their organization and their companies to really drive sales, right? Collaborate internally with marketing and sales, and all of that is really important for us to be able to drive, everything forward.
I love that you said collaborate with marketing and sales.
I talk about it all the time. I don't know how many of them are doing it.
Well, that's a good point. I think that is an issue of maybe not enough people are doing that. You mentioned that, it's a competitive advantage. Let's delve into that a bit more about how it can be, maybe give some actionable items. Like how can anybody listening now, if they're going, hey, if I do this and this, how can it help me be more competitive?
Yeah, I think one of the things would be to listen to our podcast. The other, because I'm not necessarily, the expert on this, but I do talk to a lot of people about it. I think it's really on how you design your supply chain and what it actually means to your customers. What do your customers want from you? Do they want the products closer to them so that they get delivery right away? Do they want you to have more sustainable materials and therefore they'll wait for it a little bit longer because they understand that process might take a little bit longer to maybe manufacture? Do they want custom? Well, if they want custom, then they also understand that the pricing is different and also the supply chain and logistics of that particular piece is going to be different as well. So it's really about communicating with your customer. I think also from a marketing perspective, I mean, if you're going to put sales out or you're really going to push a product, we need to make sure as a supply chain team that we have the product in stock or available for us to order, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so I think there are a variety of things that we need to think about as business owners, right? Even small business owners that maybe don't have a supply chain team, but supply chain professionals in general. I think there's also technology that really can help automate some of the processes, and really change the game on how quickly you get back to the customer about a delivery. Or maybe there's a challenge in your supply chain. You want to let your client know, because communication is key for them to come back and buy from you as well.
I love that you talked about the importance of the customer, because I think that often gets overlooked. And someone, Curt, that we know this, the topic of the we people focus so much on what they're doing as a company and not what the customer wants. So that's a really good approach. It's simple, but maybe we need to tackle that more as well.
Yeah. And I love that you mentioned the technology, Sarah. Is there any, again, for friends, family, pets out there that are listening, is there any technology that you would recommend, suggest for folks that's hot topics on, that you're interviewing on your podcast?
So I would suggest to go and listen, or at least go to the website and use the search bar, put in a keyword, and all of that content will come up so you can listen to, because everybody's supply chain challenges are different. And there is a solution out there for every single one of those challenges for the most part, right? A lot of people are talking about supply chain design. How are we designing our supply chain? Where are we buying from? How close is it to our customer? Does it need to be close to our customer? Like, there's a lot of questions that supply chain teams and businesses and business owners are asking themselves as far as what their supply chain can do. And so there is some technology out there as far as supply chain design and optimization. There's technology around inventory and warehousing, and how do we make that more efficient for not only putting the packages together for delivery, but also for the team members who are having to walk around the warehouse, and maybe the products are in two different places and they need to walk really far. How do we automate that? How do we make that a little bit better for them? I think cybersecurity is also a really, really big topic right now as far as it being a supply chain risk. Lots of people getting hit with cyber attacks right now. It's kind of a matter of when that's going to happen and how organized are you? Like, when do you bring in the FBI? What does your board need to do when you get hit with an attack? You know, what tribal knowledge do you have available so that when you do have to go manual, somebody knows how to go manual so that you can keep the business moving?
Yeah, that could be a whole episode in itself.
Oh, I know.
That is a scary topic. How about, so Sarah, as you've been, I want to dig into your podcast. I strongly encourage everybody to connect with Sarah on LinkedIn, follow her podcast. You're here today, passionate about supply chain. Boy, she brings in high level experts week in, week out. I saw you've done 377 episodes. Am I close on that? I saw DC did your last one, right? Is that my?
Yeah. So that's really funny because I think in season 1, I think I did 80. So I'm at about 450.
Are you at 450? Okay. Yeah.
But then I've also done, because I was thinking about this the other day, I've done another weekly episode of Thoughts and Coffee, right? So,
Yeah. So,
there's a lot of episodes.
So before we went live, for the self-admitted introvert, right? Did you use the word introvert? I think she did, Gail. Didn't she use the word introvert?
Introvert? I don't know.
I think she is leaning more that way.
Yeah. So let's go here for a second. Let's step away from supply chain for a second. I am just you've piqued my curiosity. 20 years of logistics with family business. And then you've gone all in and really just branded yourself as an authority of like bringing in other subject matter experts around supply chain. What inspired you to start your podcasting journey, starting this whole you're just a content machine, my friend. How did you start that? And then let's lead up to the big date. I have it down, right? April 16th of 2018. What inspired you to first start podcasting? And then let's talk about when you started the Let's Talk Supply Chain.
Yeah. So I was director of sales and marketing for the family business. And I was like, how do we tell our brand story? I was looking at what was out there. Marketing back in 2016 was, in supply chain was okay. Some people didn't know whether they needed a website or not still at that point.
Right.
And so I was like, how do we do something different? And I sat down with my team and I was like, well, wait a second. If Lewis Howes can have a podcast, I don't know if anybody knows Lewis Howes, but he's got the School of Greatness. Okay.
Yeah.
I was like, if Lewis Howes can have a podcast, why can't Sarah Barnes-Humphrey?
Yeah.
And so I bought the package off Amazon, the starter kit for podcasters. And I asked a guy from my customs department to be my co-host. And tongue in cheek, we called it Two Babes Talk Supply Chain because we wanted to see how far we could push the industry. And let me tell you, those first couple of episodes, those are embarrassing, but you can still find them on YouTube. And then we just kept it going. I just sort of experimented with people who were coming on the show, what we were talking to them about. We ended up going into a studio. Companies started to pay to come on the show. And then in the fall of 2017, the family business closed its doors. I was out on my butt with no team, no co-host. I was like, I need to learn social media and graphic design and website design. Let's get this going. And then in January 2018, I started the Woman in Supply Chain series. And by April 2018, no one would come on the show called Two Babes Talk Supply Chain. And so April 16 of 2018 was literally a week after I came to that realization, and I rebranded it to Let's Talk Supply Chain.
Nice. Awesome. We're in great name. Love it. Catchy. And again, since you were a logistics person, why supply chain? Where did you get the name? Can you share that?
Honestly, we just brainstormed as a team to come up with the Two Babes.
Yep.
And then because I was rebranding within a week, I honestly didn't think too much about it. Yep. I was just like, let's talk supply chain.
Let's just do it. Brilliant. Absolutely.
There was not a lot of thought that went into that one. I'll tell you that.
So for anybody out there that's, say, manufacturers, Gail, you are such a proponent for your clients and folks that you work with of, stop being the best kept secret and get themselves out there. Sarah, any friendly advice, suggestions for people that have been hemming and hawing about it, thinking about it, or, man, I want to put my toe in the water of creating content, podcasting, live streaming. Any thoughts, suggestions that you would have for people that are considering that path?
Just do it. I think you need to be authentically you. Don't try to be anybody else because that will get exhausting and you won't want to do it. And I think you need to pick a schedule that you can be realistically consistent in. Mm-hmm. You need to show up consistently. And so if you start weekly and you're like, I can't maintain this after 3 months, that really doesn't work for anybody, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. If you start off once a month, then you can go to weekly. Mm-hmm. But it's that consistency. It's that consistent pattern where people see you and you show up, you do the things that you say you're going to do. Mm-hmm. I think really, and just get started. I mean, some of my best listened to episodes, the most downloads, are the ones that don't even have the best audio.
Nice. Awesome.
Let's not be perfectionists here, people.
Right. Absolutely. Hey, we've got a couple more comments here. So, hey, we've got friends from Dubai. We've got friends from Pakistan. And then we've got this comment here from Paul. I haven't read this yet. There are only two types of companies. So those that have been hacked and those that will be hacked. Well, isn't that interesting? As soon as this was quoted, it was out of date. Two types of companies, ones that have been hacked and will be hacked. Yeah. So so we're coming back to that. Any comments there for Paul, Sarah, Gail, any thoughts that you guys have for that comment?
Well, I'll jump in and say this because I agree with that. We just had a major thing happen in our area in the Windsor, Chatham, Sarnia area. Hospitals got hacked. And
they did? I didn't hear about that.
It's a big, and they decided not to pay the ransom. So now people's medical information is out, staff information is out. And I think that comment is so true that you have to keep on top of cybersecurity. It's not something one and done. And maybe you can comment on, Sarah. I think you've had people on talked about this, but it's something I think that you have to do regularly. Again, the consistency, checking in. I have someone that helps me with my tech stuff, and believe me, some people roll their eyes, but I'm now a big advocate for don't go on public Wi-Fi unless you have VPN.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Well, and also you need to test your team members. So you need to send them links to see if they'll click on them, because that is one of the easiest way for people to get through. I think the one thing that was really scary that I heard of was voice recognition. So, for example, one of the examples that's been shared with me is that the CFO gets a call from the CEO and says, I want to transfer $200,000 to this bank account. So the CFO goes ahead and does that. And then the CEO comes back to him, the real CEO, and he's like, why did you do that? Well, you told me to do that. No, I didn't. And it was actually somebody else who had impersonated the CEO, and the CFO had sent that money.
Wow, that is scary. I tell you, I'm hearing scary situations with that more and more, where people are even like imitating their children's voices, and like,
Yeah.
I won't go there, but there's some really scary things going on. Hey, we got comments from Damon. Damon, dude, if you're there, join us, man. Hello, everyone. He had a little family thing. He's like, he loves the comment about audio, Sarah. I've always felt good conversations and content overcome the barrier.
Yes, they
And
do.
we've had a multi-billion-dollar supplier that got hacked, and one of my clients this year put them down for over a week. So yeah, nothing, not something to take lightly. So It doesn't matter if you're a solopreneur like myself, or if you're at a big company, big team. These are becoming more serious problems.
Yeah.
Is this a really hot topic on your podcast, Sarah? Like, are you talking about it on a regular basis, or what's that look like from a cyber standpoint?
So I've had it, we've been talking about it a little bit. What I have been talking about is really the fact that it's one of the top risks in supply chain for 2023 and also for 2024. But I recently had the opportunity to go to a cybersecurity conference with the National Motor Freight Association, and that was eye-opening. You had all sorts of cybersecurity experts that were there that were outside of the industry, but really sharing what is possible, what is happening, and the solutions to really what companies and organizations should be doing. And so I learned a ton of stuff from them. I'm in touch with one of them actually for my business. Yeah. Talking about two-factor authentication. We're a small business. I've got a team of 12. Everybody's freelancers. So it's like, how do you keep it secure even at that level? And then with the two-factor, so you're not spending 24 hours giving people codes all the time. Yeah. So it's very important for me as a business owner as well.
Right. Okay. So let's slide here, Gail. Let's go back into supply chain. Obviously, as you mentioned, Sarah, like supply chain was just kind of like a buzzword that you didn't pay attention to until COVID hit. You went into the grocery store and on the shelves and they were empty for certain products that you're longing for. What are you hearing boots in the street as far as supply chain now? Like, I can only imagine I'd love to go back to your podcast episodes, like in March of 20, in June of 20, and September of 20, like very, detrimental, and we're not out of it yet. But what are you hearing now compared to what you were hearing, say, 2 years ago?
Well, it depends on what part of the industry that you're working in. I think when it comes to the trucking environment, there's not enough, there's too much capacity right now. So we have seen a couple of companies actually go out of business recently. Yellow Freight was one of them. Convoy is another, and they were a technology platform. But what happened was during the pandemic is that you added 100,000 brokerages and trucking companies. And because of all the demand, because we had so many products moving through and there wasn't enough capacity, and now we're kind of the opposite. That's what we're seeing on the trucking side. I think from a supply chain perspective, there's a lot of questions that need to be answered, right? Are we sticking to manufacturing in China? Are we looking elsewhere? Are we moving it to Mexico? Right? Mexico has been a place that a lot of people are looking to manufacture. What are our transit times? So there's lots of questions, I think, being asked. And I think this year has given people enough of a breathing room because the pandemic, was full on. And we're still seeing disruptions, right? They're still having to deal with disruptions. But I think they've gotten a little bit of breathing room where they can say, hey, what is it that we want to do now? What do we want that to look like? Let's figure this out.
Yeah, that's fascinating about the trucking industry being hit so hard. And I'm hearing different industries that, you think about, like when you couldn't travel, all the money that shifted into like, hey, I'm going to repair my home. I'm going to go buy a bike. I'm going to get a gym membership. I'm going to join Peloton. I'm going to like all the funds that left, like cruises and flights and everything that we couldn't, sporting events, all those funds that we couldn't spend money on went somewhere else. Now that the world's opened back up, I'm hearing like, like the bike industry is a mess. It's
Mhm.
an absolute disaster because, like, as you're saying, demand was so high, they were trying to keep up with it. Grilling, like Weber
Mhm.
Grill and some of these other home type companies. Are there any other industries that you're hearing that are facing like post COVID hiccups, hangovers?
Well, I think this year also we had a ton of excess inventory, like
Mhm.
as retailers, that they needed to get through, and I think we've gotten through that as far as what I'm reading. So just recently, I saw that the Port of Long Beach had one of their busiest months
Mhm.
on record in September, which means that consumer demand is coming back. And I think retailers are starting to feel more comfortable in forecasting and buying products. I think what we also saw is that SKUs got reduced, right?
Mhm.
So we had like every color under the sun before the pandemic. And now they're like, no, we're just going to keep to the ones that really sell the best. And we're going to reduce our SKU count. So we're not keeping as much inventory as well.
Great answer. Gail, let's get back to you, my friend. Let's get your journalist hat back on.
That is fascinating. That's really interesting about, now there's an opportunity for customization, I'm sure too, right? If you want that unusual thing, now there's probably people might be willing to pay to get that specialized. So I always think that's important to look at. Where is their opportunity when something,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I know in one of your shows, you talked about digital chaos. So can you maybe talk about that and what's happening in terms of the digital side of things and the chaotic side of that world as it relates to supply chain?
Yeah. So there's a lot of really great technology out there in supply chain. And supply chain has been very siloed, right? There's so many moving parts, there's so many people involved. And so now it's kind of like, how do we bring them together? But which platform are we going to use to do that? And how do we do that, right? And so that's what the landscape looks like right now. You've got large companies that have systems that take a while to get onboarded, but now you've also got companies that have got no code, low code that you can plug and play kind of tomorrow, get started and make things more efficient. I think, there was a stat that I used. I think 63% of supply chain professionals are still using Excel. And it's
67.4, I wrote that down.
well, and one of the things in those conversations is like, you're uploading, you're downloading, you're uploading, you're downloading. That's literally what we're doing with Excel right now. Or we're on like version 53. Somebody else is on version 34. I'm on version 53. And, it's kind of information chaos. Maybe it's not digital chaos, but information chaos. I think part of the challenge as well is overwhelm and fear. Organizations talk about fostering a culture of innovation. But in order to do that, we have to be able to allow the supply chain leaders, the supply chain teams to be able to have a testing environment for new technology and not let them feel like they're going to get fired if they don't bring in a larger, more well-known technology. Right. And so that's kind of the landscape of digital adoption right now. And I really think the solution to that is a testing environment. Like, let's look at what technology is out there. Let's bring them in and stress test them against the problem that we're actually trying to solve and figure out which one is right for us. And then it's also the priority of dollars, right? So you're given a certain amount of budget. And it's like, okay, well, which one's the priority? Because I only have budget to bring on one for Q1, Q2 maybe, and then I got budget for Q3 to Q4, and the challenge is you probably need at least 2 or 3 of them, right, to really automate and understand. And so I think when we talk about digital chaos, there are so many things to think about, so many questions to be answered, so many discussions that need to be had, and kind of not enough time.
I like what you said about priorities of budget. And someone once said it's, about time management. It's really not time management, it's priority management. So yes, that's also a big need for a discussion around what are the priorities. And that leads me into, I did have a question I wanted to tie into about the idea of collaboration, even within companies, because sometimes what seems to happen is that there's territorialism. So can you maybe give from any interviews that you've done that companies that have managed to find ways to bring more people to the table and not where they can be more open and comfortable?
Yeah, I think it's been really about simplifying the language and being intentional about the communication. So, I mean, if you think about it, like supply chain, I have a supply chain dictionary. There's 107 pages full of acronyms. So if you go into a meeting with marketing, even procurement maybe, and you're using all these acronyms and you've lost everybody in the first 2 seconds, does that really foster collaboration? Absolutely not. Right? Because nobody's going to lift their hand and be like, what does that mean? I'm not entirely sure what you're talking about. Can you just like roll it back a little? Like that's just not reality. So in our respective teams and in our respective environments, going into an environment where we want to be able to collaborate with each other, we really need to be able to simplify the language and be intentional about curating that conversation. I think it's also about sitting in the uncomfortable. So when it comes to fostering innovation, when it comes to talking about technology, we have to be able to have really hard conversations in safe environments and sit in the uncomfortable to get to the solution. And I don't think we sit in the uncomfortable enough to be able to do that properly. And then I also think the other solution to that is really lending somebody from your team to the other team, like marketing, procurement, sales. Go and live with them for a week and see what their world is all about. And then have somebody come and live with the supply chain team for a week so that you can really understand what goes on, because then you can foster empathy and compassion because there's understanding.
Well, I love that. Gail, let's grab a few comments here. So Irina says, yes, absolutely. We've got, hey, Whitney Houston's in the house here. Whitney, happy Friday. Damon says, I've made the mistake of testing technology in the live environment too soon in the past. Not fun. John has a comment here. Let's see what John says. Bringing digital into supply chain requires a long-term roadmap due to the integrated nature, but this is really challenging when technologies are changing so fast. Great point, my friend John. And Damon has another one. Here's one for you, Sarah. What do you think of this question?
I don't think I've used a supply chain acronym in a very long time.
What is the most
and there's like 107 pages that I'm like scrolling through mentally.
107 pages. I'm still at the 107 pages of acronyms for supply chain. Wow.
I mean, like one of the ones that is used the most, I guess, is 3PL. You know, some people don't know that means third party logistics, which is.
I heard that on one of your shows. I'm so glad. Now I know what it means.
I'm curious how many people know what ERP stands for, right? So it's, it's
I mean, listen, there are some social, like you're on social media. I think I only just understood the if you know acronym. I mean, I'm just going to put it out there. It's shameful, but.
What about FAFO?
Have no idea.
Stay off camera, that one.
Yeah. It's a family show, Gal, right?
I know, that's why.
Just don't tell anybody, okay?
That's right. All right. Hey, we've got another comment here coming in from Paul. While I agree there are too many acronyms, you should try SAP. I like to be the idiot in the room and say what is exactly, because acronyms cross lines of business and industry. It's, and that's the thing is like, who wants to look like the fool, right, Sarah? Like, hey, I don't know what.
Okay, but let's rephrase that, because I don't think that you do necessarily look like a fool, because I think everybody else or most people in that room are probably thinking the same thing that you are. Right. So I think we need to change that mindset around who is brave enough.
Right. And hey, Paul has a great acronym right there, right? RTFM.
Hey, can we get that for social posts? I feel like people just breeze through social posts and then make a comment. So we need one for social posts. Read the post. Read the freaking post. RTFP.
Right. Read the darn post. So, all right. Yeah, let's keep it going.
You, Paul.
What other questions do we have here?
maybe what do you see as what's coming up for the future when it comes to supply chain, and what do you see as, I guess, maybe a positive and a negative change? Is there something that you can?
So I'm laughing because this is the question that I usually ask my guests.
Oh,
But I preface it with, I preface it with, can you get out your crystal ball and just, share it?
Well, as you're digging into that, Sarah, were there positives or silver linings that you saw through COVID? So I don't want to distract from Gail's question, but were there silver linings or positives that you've seen in supply chain coming out of COVID?
Yeah, because I think supply chains were comfortable before the pandemic. And now they're much more dynamic. Like, it's an amazing time to be in supply chain.
Yeah.
Let's just put it out there.
It's cool.
You've got people graduating from supply chain, courses, diploma, whatever that looks like.
Right.
And they're coming into the industry and they're like, warehouse design is like interior design for me. Like, that is my jam.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, like, who would have thought somebody would come out of school and be like,
right,
I want to be in the warehouse, especially a woman. And that comment came from a woman, which was cool. So I think it's a really exciting time to be in the industry. I think it's an exciting time for us to think about things differently, for us to be able to design it on an individual organization basis rather than doing what everybody else is doing. Understanding that disruption is really just the natural flow of business and supply chain now. And so it's a matter of how do we be proactive rather than reactive, playing around with these technologies to figure out which ones are going to empower and enable your teams to be able to do what they want to do. And, for teams, people want to come into an organization, they want to make an impact. Right? That's what people are looking for. They're looking for flexibility. They're looking for impact. And I think there's a lot of dialogue around retention. How do we keep people engaged, right? With each other, with the business, with the innovative side, the creativity. And I think that that's what automation is going to allow us to do a lot more, especially in supply chain, is that we're going to, as humans, be able to be more strategic and more creative rather than just doing the do's.
Right. So what I'm hearing is COVID brought the sexy back to supply chain. Is that what you're saying?
I think Two Babes Talk Supply Chain brought the sexy into supply chain. And then the pandemic just was we're here for it.
Right. Well, and you do an amazing job of women in supply chain. You talk a lot about diversity in supply chain. So if you want to put it out there, why are all the cool kids, considering supply chain now as a career?
Because there's so much opportunity. You can design it. Like, if you listen to my Woman in Supply Chain series, so we feature one woman a month on the podcast and one on the blog, and we talk only about their journeys. What does it look like? What have they been able to do? What can a career path look like in supply chain? There's so many different ways that you can go, and it can look so many different ways as well, right? There's lots of travel, right? Supply chain is global. Right? You need to go and see your suppliers, your manufacturers. A lot of people in supply chain get to travel a lot. Right. So if you like to travel, supply chain is a great career path for that as well. It's just an exciting time to be in the industry.
What's next? What are some hot topics that you have coming up on your podcast?
So much. I've already filmed some for 2024. Already. And so we've got lots of things going on right now. We've got some really good episodes for Blended. So I have a second podcast called Blended. It's where I bring 5 people from different walks of life together to talk about diversity and inclusion in the workplace. We just put one out about microaggressions. We've got some really, really good topics coming up on that one. In 2024, our nonprofit, the Blended Pledge, where we give away grants to cover travel expenses so that diverse voices can say yes to speaking engagements. We're hoping to give out way more grants in 2024. So if you know somebody, send them over to blendedpledge.org because we are looking for applicants because we've got some money to give away. And yeah, we've launched the Secret Society of Supply Chain as well. So those are our 3 membership groups. We've got a virtual monthly meetup for women in supply chain and marketing professionals in supply chain. And so we've got groups for everybody. So that's what's kind of on the horizon. That's what we're working on. That's what we're really excited about. But we've got lots of different topics coming up to do with the hottest topics in supply chain, to do with specific technology in the industry. So stay tuned.
Well, I love this, Gail. I want to start. I want to be mindful of everybody's time, and guys, if you just joined us, we're here with Sarah Barnes-Humphrey, and so we're talking supply chain. You want to connect with Sarah. You want to connect with my friend Gail on LinkedIn. They are both doing amazing things. Gail, I'd be remiss if we didn't talk about community. Sarah is just absolutely crushing it with community. Do you have any questions that you want to slide into?
I have to say, for anybody that's in supply chain, this would be a great Christmas gift, because I can't get that song out of it. I like to move it, move it. I like to move. Look at that. That is a great brand. I work branding and encouraging people to do creative things like that. So I think that would make a great Christmas gift too for someone that's in supply chain.
Or let's talk supplychain.com just on your shop.
Lots of swag, right? Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about community before we wrap up, Sarah. You have done an amazing job, and so you got hit with a little new news or a little transition in 2017, 2018, and instead of pity party or just kind of like wallowing in grief, you roll up your sleeves. It is so inspiring what you've done in such a short period of time. I know 5 years, but I mean 5 years goes by like that. What would you say? Did you have any idea that did you have a vision, or was it just like a day-to-day thing? What did that look like?
It was just, I'm going to do something every single day.
Yeah.
I mean, supply chain media, when I started in 2016, wasn't even really a word.
Yeah.
Now it's a word.
Yeah.
And honestly, I'm just so grateful. I'm so grateful to the community that surrounds us, that supports us, community folks like you two, that continue to support what we're doing and have us on the show to talk about it and to reach more professionals, to let them know what is available, right? Yeah. Community groups, polls every Wednesday morning on our LinkedIn, get active, get involved, be part of this amazing community. But no, I had no idea. I mean, I was working as a receptionist in a tennis club in the fall of 2018 so that I had some income coming in while I was doing this. Cause I didn't pay myself for a very long time to get this going. So,
was there a moment where you're like, this is working, or I'm built, was there a tipping point, or was it just the daily grind of man, how many you have tens of thousands of followers on your Let's Talk Supply Chain page, right?
Yeah. I think we're just a little bit over 66,000. Yeah.
Were you astonished when you hit hey, gee, we just hit 5,000. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. We're at 10,000. What was that climb like? What was going through your mind when you were hitting those numbers?
Yeah. I just sort of, keep in my own lane.
Yeah.
I sort of just do the day-to-day and what I need to do, and talking to clients and, figuring out what kind of content that we're going to put out there. What does that need to look like? Strategizing on that. What does the community want? Right. And just really trying things. I've tried a whole bunch of things. Some things have worked. Some things have not worked. And just basically trying to break some of those glass ceilings and figure out where we can go with it and what we can do and how we can bring everybody together. And those milestones are amazing. I have been blessed because, I've been featured in magazines and I've been featured on BBC, and, we've had those milestones of 10,000 followers, 20,000 followers, 35,000 followers. And I'm just humbled every single time at the support that we get from the community. So I just want to say thank you to everybody, including you guys, for having me on today.
Well, how about this, Gail, real quick? So Patrick says, I like to move it. Nice hoodie.
Let's talk supplychain.com.
Whitney just says, I just read your sweatshirt, Sarah. Love it. So guys, go to Let's Talk Supply Chain, right? Let's Talk Supply Chain. You have all sorts of swag. Gail, what were you going to chime in?
Well, I was just going to say, this show and everything you do is about stop being the best kept secret. And I just, Sarah was talking, one of the things that stands out, in the work I do around public relations and strategy is that people know exactly what your podcast is. Let's talk supply chain. And you have a niche, and you, as you said, you kind of focus on that, and you're bringing in experts. So kudos to you. And I think anybody watching too, you want to do that. You want to get your story out. And if you're not telling your stories, tell other people's stories. That's what we have in common, Sarah, I think.
Yeah.
My show too,
Well,
Curious Minds. I'm interested in people that are curious, that are, and, telling stories that maybe aren't heard enough.
Well, and it's funny because I tell everybody this all the time. You ask me about my vision, Curt, and my vision was to create a platform to empower voices within the supply chain community. The only reason why I used myself was because I was the only person that would work for free at the time.
Yeah.
This is not about me. This is about the community. And actually, one other thing that I'll put out there, because it is best kept secret thingies, is that I'm the first podcaster to ever franchise. And I don't think anybody quite realizes that, or maybe knows that about me, but I've had an Asia Pac franchise for about 18 months. And I continually look to get franchises in other regions as well, to be able to teach what I do and help them have their own community for themselves as well.
Well, I have to, man, Gail, I don't know about you. I got goosebumps, man. Sarah, you're very modest, very humble, so you can plug your ears. My admiration for what you've done in the past 5 years is just nothing short of off the charts. You're a fierce advocate for supply chain, fierce advocate for women in supply chain, for diversity in supply chain, in, how you took, you turn, I call it, you turn those messings into blessings. You took a really difficult time, and, maybe we'll have you back on. We'll dig a little deeper if you want, but, you went through a really difficult time with a family business, and look at the lives that you're impacting. Like you have a nonprofit that you're helping people to send to speak at events. So we applaud you. We salute you. We commend you. I'm a proud girl dad, and I just, I'm telling my teenage daughter, all about you tonight at dinner.
Oh, that's nice.
What an inspiration that you are to thousands of followers on your LinkedIn page, our community here on LinkedIn, and just being a fierce leader for supply chain. And you've definitely brought sexy back to supply chain and making it super exciting, right?
Now you got another song for Damon to have in his head.
Yeah, we'll have Damon. We got another song for you, bringing sexy back to supply chain. And so, Sarah, that will be your next sweatshirt, Sarah. So let's start winding down. I want to get everybody. I want to be mindful of everybody's time today. Gail, takeaways, thoughts, words of wisdom. What stood out for you?
This is just confirmed for me, that we need to have more talk about how supply chain connects the dots. I talk a lot about that we really need to connect more dots in terms of, we talked about community, we've talked about how supply chain touches everything. And I work a lot in the world of mold making. So, I spend time with one of my clients, and now what I do is I usually go in at least once a week, and I just, I sit in on meetings, and believe me, supply chain and looking at future planning is so crucial. So I used to think supply chain was like an unknown. And so it's now crucial to everything we see, hear, and touch. So that was my biggest takeaway, is confirming, and that also issues like cybersecurity, connecting that dot into this. Everything is now global and connected, and you can't, tap out of any of this, because it's going to impact you. So thank you, Sarah. Great insights.
Yeah, that was the cybersecurity. I didn't plan on going there today. So that was a fantastic topic. Sarah, parting words of wisdom, thoughts that you want to share with everybody as we part ways today.
Just go for it. And for the two of you, thank you so much for the amazing questions and for having me on the show. It's been a lot of fun. I'm so glad that we did that. So thank you.
Well, thank you. I know I shot you a note. We have a bunch of mutual friends in DC and SNEA and Sarah. And so this was really an honor for us to have you on, and everybody that caught this today. Boy, if you missed any of it, I invite you, catch the replay, hit that rewind button. If you're out for a walk, hanging out with a dog, or whatever you're doing this weekend, and catch Sarah. And you definitely want to catch, she's doing a live stream on Tuesday at 10 o'clock. So connect with her on LinkedIn, catch her live stream. She has podcasts. What do you do? Two a week? How many podcasts do you do a week?
So I do about 9 podcasts and live shows a month.
Okay. She is everywhere. You can't miss her. So Sarah, I'm going to ask you, hang out with us for 1 second, guys. Thank you for joining us today. Damon, we miss your brother. I wish you were on stage with us because this was a great interview. And so we just wish everybody an amazing, incredible weekend. God bless you. And just what we'd love to say is, man, go out there and just be someone's inspiration, just like our friend Sarah was our inspiration today. Just be someone's inspiration. And
I had to do it. I was like, yes, my team's going to kill me.
I did it too. I learned that, during COVID. I was just telling someone, I said during COVID, that's how I'd say, oh, look at me, I'm at a meeting.
All right. Hey, I'm gonna close it out. Guys, hey, we'll see you Monday. We've got a great guest on Monday. So
have a great weekend.